I've just seen a ghost. Several of them, in fact. And it turns out we have much to talk about. Since it's that season, late spring, early summer, college reunion season, I'll bet I can render your last college reunion experience in a few broad strokes. That subtle frisson of nostalgia when you first stride onto campus, peering into faces, looking for someone familiar, noting who has aged well and who hasn't, who got famous and who just got lost, who got married, unmarried, remarried, retreaded, retired, a little bragging about the kids, the grandkids, the stepkids, drinking some cheap wine, maybe a little dancing, rinse and repeat in 5 years, and get ever more creative requests for money from the alumni office in between. Am I right? But then there was COVID-19 derailing everything into the virtual and sending alumni offices scurrying for novel ways to keep alums emotionally tethered to the mothership. I have tried to love Zoom, or at least become conversant with it, but the first time you get randomly sorted into a breakout room where you know no one, that's likely to be your last. Fortunately, I went to school with some very clever and talented people who shamelessly bent those predictable paradigms, and I'll be darned if they didn't invent time travel in the process. First, you take songs from your college years. You know, those hook-laden earworms which, if heard in an unguarded moment, will set your hips into an unconscious sway. Then rewrite the lyrics to showcase your undergraduate experience, the anxiety of all-nighters and term papers, the savage pleasure of athletics and intramurals, the sacred and profane rituals of sex and drugs and rock and roll, that whole messy and ecstatic journey from late adolescence to young adulthood. Pair that oral content with images from your college newspaper and yearbooks, photos from personal archives, jerky Super 8 home movie footage of sporting events and campus hijinks, concert footage from the original artists, and your own comic recitations of those stories with parody limericks. What you end up with are personalized music videos which send you back and forth in time. The sheer genius of this format is that music communicates directly with the most primitive parts of the brain, the parts that process and remember emotion. Music sets the emotional stage, the visual images populate the time frame, and the new lyrics make it personal. Before you know it, you're not just back at your alma mater, but you're literally reliving some of the best years of your life. Originally, we were only going to process a dozen of these songs this way, but once the creative process opened the wormhole to those memories, we ended up with 3 times that amount of content, 4 sets lasting more than 2 hours, and 2 virtual after parties because many of us were reluctant to leave that place where we were young and strong, virile and achingly beautiful, and had visions of limitless possibility ahead of us. You know, it was with unanticipated affection that I became reintroduced to that young woman that reunion night. All that hair and the self-effacing awkwardness of shedding an old skin and growing into a new version of oneself was, well, enchanting. That naive optimism that anything could be accomplished with equal parts of vision and hard work, yes, I remember that fondly. Those were the years of roommates instead of spouses. We had jobs but had yet to forge careers. We were appropriately self-absorbed and yet poised on the threshold of a much wider world. And we had little concept then of how severely life would test us. How could we possibly have anticipated the relationships that would or wouldn't go the distance, the career paths that were more river than road, the dreams deferred by reality and circumstance, the loved ones we would bury? But from the perspectives of both then and now, I'm proud of that young girl. She turned out to be a worthy vessel for a lifetime of goals and dreams. She put form to her ambitions, made prudent choices, and thank God married the right person. Her work life was rich with meaningful contribution and fulfillment, and her children will leave their worlds better than they found them. She's been blessed with rich, long-standing friendships, most of them from Swarthmore, and the work on this reunion project has even gifted her with some new ones. She continues to be tested, but she knows now that she's sturdy, and that asking for and receiving and giving help are all acts of courage. And she's not alone. It was clear from the emotions resonating on the faces of her classmates during that reunion broadcast that they were having similar conversations with their once and future selves. Seeing ghosts will do that to you. It's been 45 years, since we left our collegiate mothership for parts unknowable, and fortunately, with apologies to Springsteen and to quote the signature lyric from our last parody, grads like us, baby, we're still going strong. But after that long collective look in our rear view, it's both revelation and reassurance to recognize that although we were just kids then, in the musical parlance of the time, those kids were all right.